Hey, welcome back. I know the last video was a little bit long, but I try and keep these to around 10 minutes. But they also have kind of a natural start and end point associated with them. So this one will be a little bit shorter. I want to talk a little bit about what the overall plan is here. What we want to do is create a spreadsheet so that I can change the number of years. Suppose I decide I want to start saving when I'm 30. Right, so you notice how my total invested is decreased, and I might want to go ahead and start saving late and retire early at 50. So this reduces the amount of time that I have to do my investment, which is also going to have big impacts on the final value of how much I've actually been able to save. So as we adjust these input numbers up here, we want all these numbers down here to adjust automatically. Let me go ahead and take it back to my 25 and 71. And these are the maximum numbers that you can do. Most people have to retire. Well, they don't have to retire, but they have to start withdrawing from their savings at 71 and a half years old based on current law. So that's why we're stopping at 71. And then a lot of people will go to college. They'll get out. They'll get a job. They'll have some expenses. A new car, new furniture, car insurance that they have to pay on their own, a phone that they have to buy on their own. So a lot of people can't really start saving until they're at an age of 25. All right, so what we're going to do is calculate what the average savings is going to be. If we look at our value, what we want to do is average an entire row. So each one of these rows represents the number of months that we've got to retire. If I'm looking at starting at 25 and finishing at 71, then I want to average everybody that's in this row, not counting the 522 or 552. All right, and then if I change my start date, I'm always going to start at the first column because this represents when I do my first deposit. In other words, the $200 that grew. So if you start when you're 30, you don't start, let's say you start at 26 rather than 25. You wouldn't start and average this column at 13. This is the 25th year. 13 starts the 26th year. You got to start again at the 208. So what we want to do is automatically find the row that represents the year that we're going to retire in. And we're going to do that by using the number of months that are there. So this is a kind of a complex equation, and I'm going to go ahead and type it slowly, and then you just repeat what I'm typing, and then we'll talk about how it actually works. So we want the average equals average, and then I'm going to use a function called indirect. And what this indirect function does is it lets me put variables in for what the range that I want to average over is. So we want to indirect, and then we want to start on our value, and then we want to put an exclamation point and then a B, because we want to always start doing this in our B column. This is in I got my cap locks on. It doesn't have to be in capital. It can be lowercase as well. And then we want to take and we want to add to that. We're going to concatenate, which means to take two text terms and put them together. So that's the concatenate sign. And then we want to concatenate the number of months, which is B8, and we hit F4 to lock that in. And then we want to add 1 to it, and that's because our first row is actually the lifetime simulation number, which I'll point out here in a second. And then a parenthesis and a parenthesis. You'll notice how these parentheses are red. That means that they're balanced. All right, and then we do a colon, and again with an indirect, and quotes, and then value, bang, B. So watch what you're typing in. Make sure you're typing exactly what you're seeing here. And then we concatenate again. And then we want to concatenate. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not B. It's SG. Double quotes. And then we want to concatenate again. And we want, this is the row that we're in, parenthesis. Then we click on our B8. Hit F4, lock that in, so it's a $sign. We add 1 to it because our first row is the number of years. And now we end the parentheses. You see we have a black parenthesis at the end, which means everything's covered. At this point, if I hit return, I should get the average. And then we want to turn that into a dollar value. So on average, if I start saving at 25 and I end saving at 71, for my simulation, I end up with $1.3 million saved up on average. Okay? Yours numbers are going to be different because each simulation is going to be slightly different. In fact, you'll want to look at everybody's averages that come up, because the average of averages is actually probably the most accurate estimate of what you're going to end up with. All right, now we want to do the min, max, the standard deviation. And I don't want to have to retype all this stuff. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to highlight what I'm interested in, and then I'm going to hit Control C to copy. And now I'm going to hit the return key. All right, so our next one is equal to the min. And then we just hit Control V to copy in all the stuff we typed in before, and we hit return. And the next thing we want is our max, parenthesis, Control V to copy everything in, and return. I'll go ahead and put these guys in as dollars. So our worst case scenario, we invested $110,000, we only ended up with $121,000. That's not a very nice lifetime. On the other hand, we have one lifetime where we invested $110,000 and we ended up with $16 million, which is pretty good. But on average, we're probably going to end up with roughly $1.4 million. All right, let me go ahead and take the coloring off these two guys. Next, we want our standard deviation, so equals standard deviation of a sample, and then Control V to put my indirect in. So again, the indirect is just there to allow dynamic referencing. In other words, you can use variables in there rather than just the underlying numbers. So let's just do a little testing here real quick, and then I'm going to go ahead and end the video. Come back, we'll do our net return. Actually, why don't we just do our net return? So our net return is pretty simple. It is equal to our average total savings divided by our average, or the amount of money that we inputted, and then we want to turn that into a percentage. So our net return on our total investment is 1,260%, which isn't too bad. And again, this is a simulation, so your simulation is going to be different than my simulation. Now I just want to show you how you test it. So if I want to retire at a typical age of, let's say, 65, now my average savings, is how it's automatically updated. My investment was $96,000. The total average savings was $800,000. My average return was 835%. What about if I want to invest just one more dollar every month? So I'm going to change that to 201. I ended up with an additional $4,000 or so. All right, so if I change this back to 0, so that's 801,000 versus if I'm at 201, I'm at 805,000. And then we could test if I do maybe a little more aggressively. Let's do 300. Now I'm at 1.2 million. That's $300 a month, right? So my investment per year is equal to just 12 times So about $3,600 a month or a year investing, which right now may sound like a lot of money, but in the future, once you get a job, it's not as much as you think. And by starting early, we end up with a lot more money. If I change this, I'm just going to delete that. Let's say I delay my investing only for 5 years. So now I'm going to start saving when I'm 30 rather than 25. I'm at 1.2 million with $300 per month. Cuts me down to 700. So I take 5 years of investing out, takes me down to 786, an average. All right, so that's going to allow us to start. This is our model. It's a fairly basic model because it doesn't assume a few things, but I'll go over that when we come back. Thank you very much. On the next one, we're going to work on our range, our step, and then we're going to deal with our it's a frequency distribution. All right, thank you very much. Bye.